want to start with the transfer portal because I was out on Friday when LSU made the announcement that they had inked 7 players in the transfer portal, and by now you know the names. Zy Alexander, the corner who was at Southeastern, Aaron Anderson, the wide receiver from Alabama, Denver Harris, the corner from Texas A&M, Jordan Jefferson, a defensive tackle from West Virginia, Jalen Lee, defensive tackle from Florida, Paris Shand from Arizona, the defensive end, and then Braden Swinson, the Oregon transfer, who's also a defensive end. Look, this is obviously the new era of college football, the new age of college football. That's what you've got to fill holes in your roster with ready-to-play players. And LSU did an excellent job this past season of bringing in some transfers that were immediate impact guys, specifically in the secondary on the offensive line. Obviously, your quarterback was the guy that you brought in the transfer portal, and that's the way things are going to be done. And I think they've done an excellent job at identifying needs on this team and bringing some guys in to fill them. There are certainly question marks with everybody, but it's very obvious they attacked some needs that they felt they had. And I made my thoughts on Denver Harris very clear from the start here. Immense talent, 6'1", 180, 5-star recruit, thought to be as good a corner prospect as there was in the country last year. But the 3 decisions that he made while in College Station just showed a gross lack of maturity and respect for authority and decision-making. It was time and time again, and I didn't like it. And I thought, man, I would have to say no here to Denver Harris. However, he's really good, and they don't have any corners. So I understand why they pursued him. I know that they brought him onto campus. I know that he met extensively with Brian Kelly his entire camp, which includes former LSU basketball player Tack Minor. And they feel comfortable with it. And I guess the point is, look, if he steps out of line again, you just cut bait. You know, if you're not familiar with Harris's story, this is a guy who snuck out and missed curfew the Friday before the Miami game when there was 2 top 25 teams. He was suspended for that game. It's a guy who put himself on Facebook Live playing Speed Racer in a parking garage. This is a guy who was doing something to break the rules in the locker room, whether he was smoking weed, whether he was vaping. Either way, he didn't play in the last 4 games of the season because of something that went on in the locker room. And this is not, I got drunk and got in a bar fight. Oops. This is not, this is continuous and deliberate stuff that I didn't love. But he's a good player, and he's going to play quick next year against Florida State. So you go ahead and you add him. Zy Alexander's the other corner who has got that length. He's 6'3", made some plays on the ball for Southeastern. Look, I don't know how the game's going to translate to this level. You saw some issues with Richardson this past year, and so we'll see. But I think that there's a lot of talent there with Zy Alexander. We'll just see how well it transfers, and you've got a spring to evaluate that. Where they did the best job is on the defensive front, and they had to. And when you start to look at next year's defensive line, the numbers are going to look better, I think, than they did this past year. This past year, they just got too thin on numbers, and I don't know if that was what led to the massive rushing totals for Texas A&M and Georgia, or I don't know if they just got physically beat in those 2 games. But you know that Jaquelin Roy is moving on. You know that Ali Gay is moving on. He announced today he's not playing in the bowl game. You know that B.J. Ojulari is moving on. You're having to replace your front. And Mekhi Wing goes back and Mason Smith's back, and that's a great starting point for you to have. And Jacobian Guillory, we assume, will be back. And that's a guy who's done a nice job as a reserve for you this year. So those 3 are back. You add in Jalen Lee and Jordan Jefferson at tackle. Jefferson was a productive player at West Virginia, made plays in the backfield, clogged the line of scrimmage, did get up the field and create some pressure on the quarterback and some sacks. He's 6'4", 310 pounds. He can help you in the inside. And then Jalen Lee played for Florida this year. And if it's one of those deals where if you bring in Jalen Lee and he's your starting nose tackle, well, your defensive line doesn't look all that strong. If you bring in Jalen Lee as your 5th defensive tackle, all of a sudden you're just creating depth. And that's what he does. So that's a defensive tackle spot. Defensive end, there's a lot of talent. It's just not as proven as it was with Gay and certainly Ojulari this past year. But you got Savion Jones, you've got Xavier Carter, you've got Quincy Wiggins, you've got Paris Shan and Braden Swinson that you just brought in. So that's 5 guys on the edges. Plus, you bring in Deshaun Womack, who's a 5-star recruit in this class that you think can help you. And again, it's not a situation where you're asking Deshaun Womack to come in and be your starter and log 11 sacks. You're asking him to come in and play behind Savion Jones and Xavier Carter and Quincy Wiggins and Paris Shan and Braden Swinson. And you have Jackson Howard and Dylan Carpenter in this class. So that's good. Your depth right there is Mekhi Wingo, Mason Smith, Jacobian Guillory, Jalen Lee, Jordan Jefferson, that's 5. Savion Jones, Xavier Carter, Quincy Wiggins, Paris Shan, Braden Swinson, that's 5. So that's 10. And then the 3 guys in this class. That's 13 defensive linemen. Okay, those numbers look pretty good for next year. And that is a very, very good thing. You've got to have depth. Really the first thing I said on this show the Monday after the Georgia game was, look, you played Roy and Wingo 95% of the snaps in that game, and Georgia was doing hockey line shift changes on the defensive front. That's a different level of a program. And I'm not suggesting LSU is going to be in that type of shape next year, but 13 guys is pretty encouraging at this point. However, on the flip side of that coin, you at defensive tackle next year are very likely to lose Mekhi Wingo, I think. Jacobian Guillory, Jordan Jefferson for sure, and Jalen Lee could leave. So all of a sudden, a defensive tackle, you're looking there, you go, okay, Mason Smith will probably be gone after next year. That's his 3rd year. So your numbers at defensive tackle, when you consider the fact that you don't have one in this class, it gets real thin again. And that's what Brian Kelly's talking about when he wants to build this thing through the high school ranks. Because Wingo is a transfer, and Lee is a transfer, and Jefferson is a transfer, and those guys kind of come in and go out, and then all of a sudden, you just don't build the experience depth in your program that you'd like to have. So, yeah, it's great to plug holes, but the fact that there's not a defensive tackle in this signing class is troubling. And maybe Deshaun Womack grows into that spot. Maybe he grows into a tackle. But that's something that's in the future. It paints a very nice picture for 2023. It paints a very, very blurry picture for 2024. And at this point, in this era, you cross that bridge when you get to it. But I think looking at both sides of the coin here is fair. You did a really nice job in the transfer portal at defensive line, but you're going to have to do it again next year. It's the same thing that LSU did with the cornerback room this past year. This really the secondary as a whole. Bernard Converse, in. Brooks, in. Fouché, in. Seven Banks, in. And then all of a sudden, you look up and there they go. It's a vicious cycle, and it's one that is going to keep college football coaches on their toes 365 days a year. But when you look at this transfer class, you look at 7 guys who are very, very likely to help you next year, and that's a good thing. I think a lot of people took my signing day opening statements as very negative or pessimistic, or when I said the reality is, like, a lot of these guys aren't going to finish their time at LSU. And that's the opposite when you look at the transfers. These are plug-and-play guys. This is, in the NFL, your free agent signings. You identify a spot where things are a little light, then you go make it happen. And they did that. You got 2 corners in Alexander and Harris. You got a return man that you really needed in Aaron Anderson. And then you added depth to your defensive line with Swinson and Shand and Lee and Jefferson. So I think job well done by LSU to identify these guys and make it happen. Obviously, Brian Kelly knew that this was going to happen pretty early on, and they put together kind of a signing day type situation on Friday where they released them all at one time. We had a couple of that put their stuff on Twitter: Jalen Lee, Denver Harris, Aaron Anderson, that kind of stuff. But the rest of the guys just kind of appeared. I didn't even know. Well, I was shocked when I knew of 2 guys, and all of a sudden Brian Kelly gets the microphone and says, yeah, I think we're going to sign 7 or 8 on Friday. It's like, Friday? It's Wednesday. But they already had it all put to bed. They got these guys on the campus. They had extensive meetings with them, and they created some space and brought those guys in. So really, really good stuff for LSU in the transfer portal. That's exciting news for the Tiger program as they now set their sights on the Citrus Bowl. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Hunt Palmer Show on YouTube. If you don't mind, throw us a like right below and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.